You can head out to their booth in the foyer. I'm sure you would have seen the booths out there. They are sponsors, so do head out over there. Yeah. Now, to take us through the economic game changes with drone technologies, may I invite Rachel Lau, Managing Partner, RHL Ventures, to moderate this session on Flying Forward, Global Economy Game Changer. Joining her to share the expertise are Siti Nurul Nariza Muhammad Nizar, Head Technology Accelerator and Deployment of Petronas Ventures, Amir Zakwan, Chief Strategy Officer of Aerodyne Group, and Mark Young, co-founder and CEO of Garuda Robotics. Put your hands together for this exciting team. The stage is yours, Rachel.
Hi, hello. Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Lau. I'm the co-managing partner of RHL Ventures. RHL is one of the largest homegrown VC funds in Malaysia, and we typically invest in Series A and B companies. Our latest fund, Hibiscus Fund, is a co-GP with Kookmin Bank, one of the largest financial institutions in Korea. And we typically like to invest in Southeast Asia with a keen eye of investing in companies that want to expand in Malaysia and using Malaysia as a regional hub. With me, I've got Mark, who's co-founder and CEO of Garuda Robotics. I've got Amir Zakwan, who is Chief Strategy Officer of Aerodyne Group. And I've got Siti Nurul Nariza Muhammad Nizar, who is Head of Technology Accelerator and Deployment of Petronas Ventures. So first off, let's get an introduction from all three of them. Do you want to start, Nurul?
Hi. Hello, testing. Hello, everyone. Hi, Rachel, and hi, my fellow panelists. My name is Siti Nurul Nariza. I'm the head of Technology Accelerator and the Deployment of Petronas Ventures. We are the CVC arm of Petronas. So my role is I look after the strategic ROI of the CVC. I make sure that I align resources between our investee portfolio companies and the bigger group of Petronas to co-create value for both companies. Been with Petronas for as long as I can think of, 19 years actually. Started my career in the technical field, practicing electrical engineering. Been to offshore projects, gas plant operations, and then I moved my way to corporate, assuming the role of strategy and commercial in the upstream business. And 3 years ago, I was nominated to start off, launch and stabilize the CVC group for Petronas. And I work closely with the C-suite management to crystallize the CVC investment strategies, mandate, focus areas, fund size, and also the team setup. Good to meet everyone.
Amir?
Cool. Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Amir. I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Aerodyne Group. Aerodyne Group is, born and bred in Malaysia. We're #1 ranked drone service provider in the world. We are in the business of DT Cube. Very simple explanation of our business. The first DT being drone technology, second DT being data technology, and the third DT being digital transformation. So as that suggests, we service, large companies. We service, for example, large critical asset owners to make sure that, what we do, the output will be, faster, better, cheaper, and safer in terms of compared to traditional asset management. I think we'll talk about a little bit more during the panel later on. Mark?
Thank you. 8 years ago, my co-founding team got together and we said we want to realize this vision that we have of transforming the way that we all do work. And we build drone technologies, we work with businesses and governments to deploy intelligent, autonomous, unmanned aircraft and AI technologies so that they can capture data better, they can analyze it faster, and ultimately get to the work that actually needs humans to do. So a lot of war stories as well, which I'm sure we'll be sharing over the next half an hour, working with the regulators, being among the first to get certifications, operating the largest drone test site in Southeast Asia so that we can drive all sectors of this very fledgling industry forward until we are on par with manned aviation. And let's hope we can dive into that over the next half hour. Thanks, Rachel.
Okay, so let's dive into questions. First question is for Nurul. What is Petronas Ventures investing in these days? Have you invested in anything drone related? Or could you give us a sense of what is in your portfolio? And how do you use it within the Petronas ecosystem?
Right. Great question, Rachel. We started our Petronas Ventures about 3 years ago, as I mentioned. And then I think we had the investment thesis. So our investment thesis aligns very well to the group's target, which is on the value, on the growth, value, and also the sustainability in Petronas. And we have 3 focus areas in the CVC, which is we look for the technology in the facilities of the future. Namely, we look for the technology in the robotics, automation, AI, machine learning, and etc. to improve our way of working, to reduce the costs in our operations. And then the next one is that our focus area is the future of the energy, because we know that the energy transitioning pace is currently happening, and we need to be on board with this at Petronas. The third one would be, because Petronas is huge in the chemical industry as well, so we are looking for technology in the future of chemicals and advanced materials to do away with our common commodity chemical products. So we're looking into products that under the circular economy, turning waste to value, and etc. So these are the 3 focus areas under Petronas Ventures. And then over the past 3 years, I think I would say that we are still a new kid on the block for the CVC in Malaysia, right? So, but we believe that we have made a significant tractions over the past 3 years. We have established 2 CVC arms. One that is based in the San Francisco called the PIVA Capital, and one that is headquartered in Kuala Lumpur that looks into the technology innovation deals in the APAC and Malaysia. And we have 2 investment arms. We have invested in 20 direct startup companies to date with various technologies. We have 3D printing, we have robots, AI, machine learning, we have under the FOE, future of energy, and also waste to value. These are among our technologies that we have invested in. We have also Future Tech Accelerator that in the CVC we run an accelerator program. We have ran 2 cohorts of Future Tech Accelerator, and as a deployment head as well, we have deployed various technologies across the group in the past 3 years. So I'm very proud of our very small team over the past 3 years. Yeah. And talking about drone tech, whether we have seen the deal out, definitely. We are in Malaysia, we have the top #1 company that is homegrown in Malaysia, and we, like I say, in Future Tech, our aim is to discover and nurture these tech startup companies and prosper them in Malaysia. That's where I met and we met with Garuda and also Aerodyne in our Future Tech Accelerator program that we ran last year in 2021. Yep. So looking forward to more exciting collaborations with Garuda and also Aerodyne.
So Mark and Amir, I'm going to give a twist to the question that you were posed. So let's talk about the technological advances. And because you're moving so quickly, how can a VC value you, and how should we value you at this point?
Well, so I think what, from, we are both investors, right, in this space. Prior to seeing the technology cycles, I guess the old economy, investments would typically be valued on, PE, EV, EBITDA, RNAV, so on and so forth. But I think, the technology cycle is moving so rapidly, and you see a lot of companies at even listed ones that are still, listed, but still not profitable, right? So you can see the likes of, large platforms. Don't have to mention which ones, but you can go through the financial statements and you'll be like...
You should mention which ones.
But you can go through the financial statements and you can see, how am I going to value these companies, even on an EBITDA basis when there's no EBITDA, right? So, and there was one particular company I evaluated in the UK, European company, before they separated. This company was pre-revenue, valued at $1 billion. And we were like looking, how do we then value this company even when it's pre-revenue, right? So, and we saw the list of investors coming in. We saw the likes of Samsung Ventures, for example, Bosch. We saw the likes of Microsoft. We saw the likes of Intel Capital. And we were asking ourselves this question, like, what is it that they see that we're missing here? Pre-revenue by getting $1 billion valuation. Soon enough, after the deal closed, we obviously couldn't invest at that time because again, we're not ready at that time. But then again, after the deal closed, we realized that, hey, Microsoft put in an order of $1 billion of chips. So this company is a chip maker based in the UK. And Microsoft saw this and ordered $1 billion worth of chips. The next 12 months, they raised another round and the valuation was $2.5 billion. And we were like, we missed it, right? This company was worth $1 billion when we were looking at it, and then the company became $2 billion. So I think the real paradigm shift when it comes to valuing technology companies is looking beyond the numbers, right? Of course, the numbers tell you a story, but at the same time, it's really looking at, in the next 10 years, is this really a game changer? We talked about, this sessions about global economy game changer. Is it really going to change lives? So this particular company that I talked about makes chips that are optimized for AI calculations. So edge computing, right? So these chips would be used to power autonomous cars, for example. It's able to make edge calculations on board of that particular vehicle without sending data back to servers, which is contrary to your Siri or your Google Assistant, whereby you need to send data back to servers. And split-second decisions matter. So edge computing is the next frontier. And Microsoft saw that, seeing that they are able to integrate this with Azure, their cloud business. But again, we need to really look at the application over the next 10 years. Is this really going to change lives? For example, other use cases would be, is this a winner-take-all, for example? Software plays or platform plays that you've seen go listed over the last few years. Airbnb, for example, when it was listed, it was loss-making, right? But then again, there was a thesis that this is going to change the way we book hotels. This is going to change the way hospitality is being managed. For example, another one is, your Grab, for example. This is going to change the way we manage or we order food. It's going to change the way we manage day-to-day transportation, for example. Uber has a different hypothesis, right? So Uber, Grab is very clear that the end goal is global domination on fintech. But Uber, their end goal is really autonomous driving, right? Uber has been talking about autonomous cars for the longest time, and that's really their go-to, their larger vision beyond the platform. So it's really about, of course, winner take all, looking at applications, looking at whether or not this is going to be game-changing. But I think investment funds need to also have perhaps technology experts on board to be able to validate this sort of technology, to be able to say, hey, even though this company is pre-revenue, zero revenue, but then again, this is going to change the world, and we need to have a consensus that some of these technology will change the world and looking beyond these numbers.
So expanding on that, how do we know it's going to change the world if it hasn't been changed yet?
Yeah, so this is where I think, having this long-term view, I think as an investor myself, having that long-term view, of course, you have this skepticism. Is it really going to change the world or not? Right? You look at 100 companies, 100 different proposals every day. But it's having the ability to sieve through all these proposals and look at, for example, what is this really a nice deck? Is it really a nice proposal? Or is it really, having this validation from looking at who is invested on board, for example? Right, so going back to that company I talked about, there must be something that the Samsung Ventures of the world, the Intel Capital see that we didn't, right? So, I was in a sovereign fund, so obviously, we didn't have the technology expertise on board to see the strategic angle of how these other companies saw it. So having syndication with all these guys makes sense to understand the thesis of what is it that these people see beyond pre-revenue, right? At that time, that was but this is a pre-revenue company. Well, how are you valuing it at $1 billion? This is pre-revenue. But there is something that other people see. Having that syndication and that platform to exchange notes with other people, other investors, makes sense to have that.
Mark, do you want to talk a little bit more about the technical advances that you see in your space right now?
Technical advances. It's interesting, right? If I can also poke a little bit into the previous question. The fundamental problem here with any deep tech industry, where, as you said, it's going to change the world, but it hasn't been changed yet. And it's also binary, right? Because within Garuda Robotics, we often say things happen very slowly until they all happen at once. It feels like magic on the outside because you don't see all the work and all the advancements that have been slowly building up. And that fundamental information asymmetry is something which cuts across the entire sector, whether you're an investor or even a founder. Because as a founder, if you don't have that technical know-how, there's no way for you to evaluate without jumping on the bandwagon whether this story is real. And I think it's been pointed out this morning by Gopi in the opening panel that a lot of the narrative building is often what closes that gap between the vision of the founder and the belief of the investors, right? But we see that the technical advances are being built every single day because we are the ones who are aware of the state of the art. We are able to identify what the customers are asking for, and we are able to see how this drives towards that long-term vision, right? So if you look all the way back, 30 years ago, when I was a kid, I said, I want to build stuff that flies. And then I looked at it really hard for about 15 minutes, and I realized I had none of the skills. There was nothing I could buy that enabled me to build something that today we look at as a drone and that is doing all this cool stuff up in the air. But fast forward to 2015, riding on the back of the smartphone revolution, all these sensors and all of the computational power that you talked about, that's built into this thing, right? A lot of the drones today are actually just evolutions of what you hold in your hands today that connect us to the broader world. And that also drives a lot of the thinking that we have around what's going to be important for the future. So all of the drones that we built, for example, are now essentially fully connected computing devices. We've been building 4G connected drones for years, and starting this year, all of our drones ship with 5G connectivity built in. They ship with GPUs on board so that they can do AI computations on your drone without having to go out to a back-end server. So we are completely upending the way you think about robots, the way that you think about drones, as these things which just capture data. Increasingly, there are full-fledged computer workstations that are out there in the world, making sense of the world, capturing data, and making decisions for you, and one day even acting on the spot, so that what we call the sense and plan and act cycle essentially just becomes one thing, and it's happening all the time. So I think technical advances are interesting, but also what we're looking forward to is how do we make these things reliable enough so that they're going to be in the air side by side with your Boeings and Airbuses. I think we've seen what happens when the regulatory process for manned aviation goes wrong, when corners are cut, when a 50-year culture of safety is stomped on, right? And we are very aware that that could lead to the premature killing of the drone industry if we who are in the industry cut such corners. So increasingly, we're not looking at just new fancy features. We're actually saying, how do I build a drone system that if I sell to Petronas and I deploy 1,000 units around the refineries, you don't have to worry that it's going to crash because mid-air, something went wrong, there's no redundancy, the battery failed without any warning. And these are the advances that are actually coming along. Being able to take all of the technologies that you already can use in the cloud, on your phones, on your powerful servers, in your data centers, and shrinking them all down onto a small flying machine. And have this small flying machine be able to operate in a trusted and reliable manner for 1,000 hours. That, I think, is going to drive all of the great innovations that we see.
Okay, let's just build on that. Nurul, how do you think about adoption of the drone space and the impact for you in the Petronas sense?
All right. So these two experts talk about the technological advancement of the drone tech. So at Petronas, while we have all these advances in the technology at Petronas, we are the end user, we are the use case. We want it all. So we want it all. But of course, in Malaysia as well as in the Southeast Asia region as well, and many parts of the global countries, these are still new technology, and we still look at it, we still have to abide to the current regulation and the certifiers and etc. So at Petronas, drone technology is not something new to us. So we have used this commonly in our inspection and monitoring, project monitoring, and also HSC surveillance. We are talking here, we are talking about like, we have applied this since 2014, for example, where we have these mega projects on the Rapid in Pengerang, Johor, and these are mega projects, you know, and these are improving the way of working for us in monitoring of the projects. So we have applied drone technology for the monitoring. Just imagine if we don't have this drone technology, our traditional way of working is very, very manual and laborious on the projects monitoring. And we also have like thousands of kilometers of pipelines, gas pipelines across Peninsular Malaysia. And we need to inspect and monitor this pipeline and right of way to make sure everything is all safe for the public and as well for our operations. So these are the technology that help us in our current operations. So looking at the new advancement in drone tech, so that are the business as usual, I would say. But when I look at the current advancement, we are exploring use cases in this BVLOS, beyond visual line of sight. For example, under the unmanned aerial system, for example. So this could disrupt more the way how we operate our operations and our projects and the rest of Petronas businesses. Again, I would say that we are still, we have to abide to the current regulatory and certifiers, but I think we are in the right direction. The technology experts together with the end user, together with the multitude of stakeholders in this drone technology and AI, we are shaping the regulation together with the authority. We like to see it as that. In fact, because of we have massive infrastructure, assets and facilities in Malaysia and across the world. So come massive infrastructure and asset, come massive opportunities on the drone tech and AI as well. So for example, on this BVLOS and UAS, we have even established our drone center as a one-stop unit to manage all these applications across our operations to utilize and coordinate the drone technology in the business. Providing advisory to the business units and our operating units all over the world, and also managing the service provider and also looking at the foresighting of the drone tech. So these are the one-stop center in Petronas that we have established called the Drone Center. So, and so in summary, I would say various opportunities come where drone coupled with this new advancement and also in the AI technology, we can add value to current Petronas and operations and as well as our partners across globally. Yep.
So Amir, Mark, you can decide who we want to take this. What are the ethical implications of drones? And what is the ESG angle to investing in drone technology?
So when I talk about drones, I think I want to talk a little bit, I want to expand the thought process here. It's not because drone is a machine, and the thinking process actually happens beyond the machine. So the drone is basically a flying robot. Garuda Robotics, flying robot. It's a flying robot, but it's really the algorithms that power the flying is the one that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to give a parallel to, for example, a steak knife. Right? A steak knife can be used for an innocent activity like cutting a steak, right? But at the same time, it can also be used as a murder weapon, right? Steak knife. But at the same time, we've seen, a drone being used for very disastrous purposes. So we saw the war in Azerbaijan, for example. Autonomous drones, powered by AI, really targeting, killing, civilians and so on and so forth. We saw it in the war in Ukraine. Where weaponized drones are used to basically fortify the blockade of Ukraine for Russia coming in. And let's be honest, it doesn't need very sophisticated technology to weaponize a drone. Right? You can use the technology that you have right now, the chip that powers your facial recognition on your phone. You can use a drone that you can buy off the shelf. You can put a C4 on it, get it to identify targets, facial recognition, harakiri, right? Destroy, whatever. But I think the key point that I think Nurul mentioned here is regulation. The applications of drone that we use is to advance humanity, right? So, and of course, that's our biggest vision, right? To advance humanity. And that doesn't involve killing people. Killing people doesn't mean advance humanity, right? So when we advance humanity using all this, we really have to our regulations is very, very strong. And this is where progressive reforms of the regulation to cater to the stuff that we do, for example, autonomous flight, taking care of large scales of assets, come into play. So every single point of flight, for example, we're not allowed to fly beyond the flight plan that we've submitted for certification, for example. These regulatory requirements are very, very important and not just the requirements, but also the enforcement of it. It's very, very important to make sure that the application of AI, of course, drones, right? AI and also drones, robotics is in check. Because, like I said, let's be honest, drones can be weaponized today. But I think the body that needs to keep it in check needs to really, really play a big role, a critical role in making sure that this doesn't happen.
We have this unique opportunity where the rules don't exist. We are essentially building an industry from scratch and in parallel building the regulations from scratch. And we've seen this from the beginning, right? So when we started out in Singapore, before you wanted to fly, you would have to go call a bunch of different agencies and they would say, okay, I think you can go. And there have been some of us who have been out in 2014, 2015, early part of 2015, on the ground with a customer. And you call up the Air Force because ultimately in Singapore, they have control over what's allowed to go up in the air. And they say, can you wait another hour? And then an hour you call back and they keep doing this to you for 3 hours until the customer is upset and storms off, right? So we've all been through that. In 2015, they rolled out, I think, Southeast Asia's first proper regulatory framework where you can apply for a permit, and Singapore style, you pay money, then you get the permit, it's okay, because then you know what you can do. Because we also then started doing operations in Malaysia where we would go to a small town, you have to inform the police, you go to the bomba, then you talk to the local administration, and they all say, can, but you don't actually know what the out-of-bound areas are. So for us in the industry, when we come at it from an aerospace angle, robotics angle, we are very happy when there are regulations because it's very clear how you can build a business. If everything is uncertain, how will you ever build confidence and certainty for your customers to leverage your solutions? And so to that end, we found that half the time, we're actually convincing and educating customers. The other half of the time, we are working with regulators. And it sounds like 0% of the time we are building product, but let's assume that all that is being done anyway, right? We are doing engineering and building product. But actually, the hardest part is to change the mindset of the market so that they understand this is not just a concept anymore, but it's something you can buy off the shelf. You can come to our websites or contact us for a quotation, and we're happy to sell things to you. On the other hand, we have to work with the regulators to say, here's what industry can do today, next month, next year, and in 5 years' time, and get them ready to change things. So we were issued the very first license in Singapore as an authorized flight school. back in 2020. But believe me, we've been talking to them about this since 2014. There were other priorities, but finally in 2019 they said, we're ready to roll this out and it's going to take a year and a half to change legislation. Can you work with us to be in the first batch? We did so, and in 2020 we were the first to receive that license. Singapore is also the first in the world to essentially say every drone needs to report its position. There's a tracker on board. We were appointed the sole supplier of this UAV tracker. Every drone that's commercially operating in the country in Singapore has to carry our tracker. They turn it on, it reports its position. Only then do they have final clearance to fly. So it's not a matter of just saying, let me do it, let me do it, let me do it. As industry players, as serious heavyweights, we have to play our part and show them what the industry is capable of providing to make the regulators' life easier. Because frankly, I'd rather be on our side asking for things than being on the regulator side, trying to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Right? So regulations are necessary to get us to the end point of what we see as the end vision for both our companies and for everyone else in the industry. If you do not take the lead and engage with the people who are making these policies, then you are setting yourself up to fail. And that's why we do things the way that we do.
So in RHL, we invest quite a bit in healthcare, education, fintech, and consumers. One of the things that we found investing in Malaysia is, the shallow pool of talent. Talk about, in 2 minutes, I guess, around the table here, what do you want to see from the talent, mature in the ecosystem?
I think you're right. I think this is a heavily discussed topic, talent. I think for us, we the design of the technology that we build is thank God we're homegrown. So the proprietary intelligence is done here in Malaysia. But really, execution of this, there's a severe lack of talent, right? So the price point that we are willing to pay for, but at the same time, the sophistication of that talent. So for us, of course, there's more that can be done locally. But for us, we have no choice but to expand internationally to get that kind of talent, right? Because we move at a pace where 18 to 24 months is one technology cycle. We don't have time to wait, right? I'm pretty sure other technology players will also agree. But I think there is a lot more that can be done in Malaysia, for example. Like for us, we start partnering with universities, right? So to make sure that whatever talent that comes out of universities very, very early on is tailor-made for technology companies like ourselves. So whatever requirement that we have, we put it straight at the universities. Like, look, for them to be immediately hired, you need a checklist of 1 to 9, for example, right? So working with working with universities very, very early on is one way to get that talent. But I'm sure there are more other solutions that can be discussed here.
So we've actually extended this out to the customers. I'll give you an example. We are the exclusive drone partner for an Asian country that's a developing country. And they have a mandate to work with us, not just to grow the industry, but also to grow the human capital around that industry. So what do we do? Do we go out there and bring them all to Singapore or Malaysia to run through a drone course? Do we bring trainers out there and educate them in the latest AI technologies? The answer to both of those options is obviously no. In addition to working with a whole bunch of different partners to bring people into our team, we're also finding that increasingly customers are asking to leverage their in-house expertise. Can we provide them a platform that goes 60% of the way so that the last 40% of that critical AI, which might be in-house IP, which they feel they have an edge in because they have access to the core data needed to train the AI systems, can they actually do that themselves? And so that actually becomes part of the product. That expands out the platform strategy that we have, expands out the ability to provide this base SaaS platform, and they can then tailor-make the additional final 20, 30, 40% of the bits to their own liking. And that's actually been an important strategy for us, not just to bring talent into Garuda Robotics, but to also have partners develop their own talent while being able to leverage our platform, and we all grow together. So I think we have to be aware that it's a distributed talent pool across the world. Similarly, our business models and our technical engagement models have to recognize this new reality. We will not stop using Zoom and remote teams and communicating over the internet. just because we've got vaccines now. Instead, we need to find a way to use this as a tool to accelerate deployment of the technology. And that's what we are trying very hard to do as well.
All right, 1 minute more for me. So at Petronas, for talent, we believe that Malaysia have the richest pool of talents, founders globally. Maybe we should brand ourselves big enough to make sure that we are pronounced and the global investors see us more. And that is why I think at Petronas we form and establish this CVC. So we are the step out engine for Petronas to look into the talents outside of our traditional way of working, outside of our R&D arm, outside of our mature vendors. So we are the one who look at the startup talents that we bring into Petronas, and we see how do we accelerate the commercialization and the deployment of these great technologies at pace into Petronas. So at Petronas, we always see ourselves in the technology and innovation space as the quest for growth for us. So come and talk to me. My team is here, Aida. That's why we ran the Future Tech program. So I'm looking forward to talk to talented startup founders here to come and join on board to our next coming Future Tech program in next Q1 2023 3.0. Looking into various collaborations with the APEC partners, as well as calling in APEC startups as well this time around. Thank you.
So thank you, Nurul, Amir, and Mark. And since Nurul had the plug, RHL is also looking for investments or investment opportunities. Shafiq is there, Kevin's behind. So anybody who wants to get funding, please go find the guys over there. Thank you so much.
Make it